Hello, welcome to See Us Now. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about appearance when it comes to netball.
A netballer could look very different, and health and fitness looks very different on every single body.
My teammate Georgia Rowe really struggled with being a really tall girl in high school because it wasn't stereotypically the really cool thing. I ever feel it though, because you're quite muscular.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. So like when I was growing up, it was always like, oh, you look like a man. Do you know, like you're very, and I hated it, and I would never ever wear anything that showed my arms or showed my shoulders.
And netball is where I found my sense of belonging. Like, I'm good at it, my height is beneficial to me.
So, if I was to say to you, Joe, what do you think a netballer looks like? What would you say?
I think I would have said something very different maybe 7, 8 years ago based on like my experiences, but now that I've probably come to the UK, I would say that a netballer could look very different, and health and fitness looks very different on every single body.
Yeah, that's a good, that is really true. But netball's probably, the perception of netball, especially in this country, has changed so much over the last 7 years, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think there always was, definitely when I was coming through as a junior, there was definitely an idea of what you were to look like, and if you looked like that, you were more likely to fit in the team. And I do think that's become less, but I think it's still there in the background, especially within the sections of the court. You know, so I think there's definitely an idea of what a goal shooter looks like, and definitely an idea of what a centre wing defence looks like. Do you know what I mean?
In what way? Explain it.
5'8", brown hair, gorgeous. Belfast accent. No, like I think, you know, you would assume a goal shooter needs to be over 6 foot, but then actually in this league, even this year, you know, there's a lots of shooters that are under 6 foot proven that they're really hard to mark, and perhaps maybe we need to look at what our like idealistic norms are and whether or not that's changing as things go forward. And the same in the mid-court, it's always assumed people in the mid-court are smaller, faster, skinnier, but actually as times went on, the taller, like different players are bringing far more to that area, and actually can we utilise that in how the game goes forward? Probably.
I often, sometimes when we're running player-led camps or whatever it is, we have some really young girls come up who are on the smaller side, and actually they can watch the league and see Niamh and I playing, or see Liana Leota, who's 5'5", Beth and Dyke, Alicia Scholes, these smaller players. I think the perception of netballers have to be tall. Actually, they can actually see that there's still a place for me. Yes, it's in certain positions, but you don't have to be Mary's height to get involved. And at the same time, I know that my teammate Georgia Rowe really struggled with being a really tall girl in high school because it wasn't stereotypically the really cool thing. And, you know, little things when you're growing up, like getting invited to prom, it's difficult for boys to ask. It was for Georgia, she said, ask a taller woman to go with them to prom. But I think actually netball, it's a really cool thing to be tall, and I don't know how you feel about that, but it's giving you a sense of almost belonging.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Growing up, I was not the cool kid on the block. It's just like when we were going to prom, I was very hyped to wear heels. But my prom date was not as tall, so I had to cut down wearing heels, and again being picked on. And netball is where I found my sense of belonging. Like, I'm good at it, my height is beneficial to me and to my teammates, so I feel so welcome in that environment. But again, like position-wise, that kind of the tall person always goal shooter or keeper. I think that limits a lot of abilities for the younger girls who see netball on telly or just in person, really. I feel like that idea should be killed because it's just about what you can do as a person, or your sort of your height, really.
I think as well,
best that way.
Like you just said, the perception is that smaller players move better.
Yeah.
Or is it just that as a kid they were shoved in the positions where you have to do more running?
Yeah.
And poor Mary is shoved at the end and only gets the ball delivered to her, so she never gets a chance to change direction as much or handle the ball as much, so their skills aren't getting as developed.
Yeah, and when I was growing up, not to make it super long, I was in a netball team like at 8, but I was still very tall. So in my school where I was in Uganda, they have the height thing. So when you're playing netball, they kind of actually measure your height. So I was cut the whole time.
Really?
What?
Yeah, I started playing netball, actually playing netball at 13.
What, because you were too small?
Because I was too tall.
Too tall?
Too tall.
Yeah. So I was always cut because it would be a disadvantage to the rest of the kids.
So what did
Got
you do
you
then?
because you were too tall for your height.
Yeah.
So they felt sorry for the smaller people.
Yeah, so I always have to be not on the team.
So what would you do? Just
That was
sit there
so
and
harsh.
watch it?
I would sit there and watch, and I was the best at shooting. So when I was like around, it's not that deep. I know. So
That's really
I
hard.
knew basics of netball, but I was actually never playing.
Yeah.
I would see people train past the ball, but again, when I was more into basketball now because that was acceptable. But again, I was not too much into netball and basketball because it's just a lot of height differences, and it felt like I was only there because of my height.
Let's talk about the dresses, because
Yeah.
Niamh, you mentioned it. Body dresses. Who likes them?
I do like them.
I actually feel really feminine in it. Because a lot of my, and that's maybe a different perspective, but a lot of the sport I'm in, like leggings, tights, whatever, and a vest, like a lot of our training kit, like as a coach as well, I'm in kit often, so actually putting on a dress for me, because I don't go out as much as I used to. Do you know what I mean? It's like taking the place of my social life. The dress for me, I do like, I like wearing it. I feel good in it. You can have it different lengths to whatever style you like. For me, I'm a fan, and I don't think it's sexualising like me in any way.
It's a weird concept because in no other sport would you wear a dress. You wouldn't associate a dress with physical exercise or activity.
I like the tennis kit.
I was going to say tennis players.
Yeah, I was going to say
and
tennis.
hockey players.
Tennis players and their skort. I do like a skort. I loved a skort when I was younger.
It's funny, I do err on the side of what you said, Joe, about feeling feminine, because I think there's definitely been, like, where I obviously haven't had the downside of being tall, do you know that feeling of maybe being too tall growing up? I never had that, and it's funny how I would envy that, but I always
Did
had...
you ever feel it though, because you're quite muscular?
That's what I was going to
it.
say, yeah. So like when I was growing up, it was always like, oh, you look like a man, do you know, like you're very... And I hated it, and I would never ever wear anything that showed my arms or showed my shoulders, like on a night out or anything, because you felt more muscular, more masculine than a lot of the boys in school. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you were. Do you know what I mean? And it was like...
I was like that as well.
and I hated it.
I had massive biceps as well.
I got big arms
My
too.
six-pack was so annoying growing up.
But when you're growing up, it's embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? Because you're like, oh God, like that's really, you know, like I would, you know, stand in photos and have my arm like flattened, you know, because I hated how it looked. And it's probably actually only been in the last like 3-4 years where I've been like, you know, friends of mine have been like, oh, I would like kill to have that. And I think it's come with this whole like CrossFit era of like women are athletic, women are strong, women like can do all these amazing things with their bodies, that actually it's like, oh, I've actually had that for years, but like I've been trying to hide that, do you know? And I think where the netball dress I've always liked was that it's the most girly I've felt, and therefore on game day I felt really like comfortable in myself, versus like a training, I probably look more masculine in my training shorts and my like tank top, do you know, or not tank top, my training vest. Crop top, I'm running around a crop top at Stars.
Do you know what? You laugh, but we did. So last year, so Stars we got sponsored by Mary, and then the sports bra, and it was hot. This was in May. It got hot, and they were doing a shoot, and then so we were actually running around in sports bras, and then some of the girls were like, can we just stay in this? And I was like, I don't have a problem with it. And then a lot of us were like, it's so much more comfortable because our sweat rate was lower because we were in vests. It was so comfortable training like that on the netball court. It was weird. Bring it back in.
That's weird because when I coach at Cardiff University, and when they want to train in the gym in sports bras, I turn into like Sir Alex Ferguson. Puts a t-shirt on. I don't know why. There's a level of professionalism then that I probably associate. It's like a boy taking his top off to train. I'm like, put it back on.
Yeah, there's no need.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think in the UK you're indoors here, aren't you? A lot.
Yeah.
So I think like because when you say take a top off, I'm like in like New Zealand, Australia, it's very common for because it's just warmer.
There's a lot of skin on skin, man on man action, especially marking you. Not that I never have.
No, but it was really interesting. That actually was like something, you know, when you just record it in your head and you're like, very interesting that it wasn't just me. There was a lot of voices saying, actually, can we stay in this? And I'm like,
It's a nice safe space though. It's just you guys in training.
Yeah.
No boys around. There's no external people staring in.
Yeah.
But then it's also how they feel for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we go, oh, this is how I might feel in this case. Like for me, for example, I wouldn't wear a sports bra just in the gym. But others might love that. And that's also okay. I think there needs to be less judgment around what people, I look at people in the gym and I'm like, oh God, they've got so much confidence, or, they're in a sports bra, I wouldn't do that. But that doesn't mean someone's wrong. That just means that, again, they might feel feminine, or they might really like looking at themselves as they're working out. Brilliant. I think that we just need to stop kind of the judgmental side on a lot of people's preferences. And some may be doing it for boys' looks, some may be doing it for their own, some may be, who knows, some may have a, tripod camera and be fine. I don't know. I just think there needs to be a lot more just calmness around it.
Yeah. I was wondering, because obviously with the sport becoming more popular, it's got more TV coverage. Has that changed the way that you care about what you look like when you're playing, Niamh?
I definitely think so. You would see far more players in the changing room these days putting makeup on before a match, which blows my mind, because growing up, why would you put makeup on to go and sweat? And I was always like, that's wild, look at them putting makeup on. And now I did. Now, I'm a bit older now as well, so I feel like sometimes you need it, but there is an element of the TV camera's going to be there.
What if you get player of the match?
What if you get player of the match?
But we don't have to worry about that.
Sure, yeah.
Actually, you swept up the other week.
And then I did have a bit of makeup on. But there is an element of how am I going to look on that? Or they're taking professional photographs now. So, do I want to look good in that photograph? Yeah, you do, because you probably do want to post it on your Instagram. And if your hair's all over the place, or you're looking a bit pasty, you just don't look as good. You've got fake tan. I mean, I would say half the team fake tans. I fake tan.
Yeah, I'm back on it.
Yeah. This is not a natural Irish colour.
What?
Really?
Can you believe
Tennis Irish.
I do think there is a pressure around it, because it used to be so carefree just to be able to turn up, rock up, pop on your t-shirt and crack on, whereas now there is an element of what's in now? Oh, the hair gel, have to have my hair. There can't be a single hair out of place. Toothbrush, your little flyaways.
Slick your greys down.
Yeah, you gotta slick those edges.
Yeah, and it's young ones that come through and actually nearly, they're one of the girls at home is 21, and we were preparing to play a match with Northern Ireland, and she was nearly laughing at me. She was like, oh, do you want me to touch up your edges? And I was like, do I need my edges touched? I've never felt so old. But then I went and bought one of those wee toothbrushes. Hair brushes, yeah, and I've learned how to use it. But there is a pressure around, because actually she does look really good when she does that. And I do think that it's not necessarily a negative thing. I think if you want to look good and you feel good, I do think you play better. So I think it's grand. I think it's where it becomes forced upon you, or there's a judgment associated with it. That's when there's negative connotations. Do you know what I mean?
We have players in our team that
don't bother.
Don't bother really much with their hair or their makeup.
And no one cares.
Or tanning. It's just take it as every person's very different.
Niamh, obviously you've played football at a really high elite level as well as netball, which is amazing in itself, by the way, incredible.
Thanks.
But what's the difference between football and netball in terms of the pressures of what you might look like?
It's a really interesting question, because I definitely felt in netball there's almost a pressure to be feminine, whereas in football I feel because I was at Reading when we first went professional, so we gained promotion from Super League 2 into Super League 1, so we hit the big time and we were all going to go professional, and everybody was moving to London, and we were going to be playing teams like Arsenal, Manchester City, Chelsea. The way that the club at the time was modelled and the behaviours that I feel were being driven were very much on the men's game that was the pinnacle. Okay, so what do we want to be? What do? They've been professional for years. This is what we need to emulate. And I almost felt like there was a forced culture of, it was a very masculine culture, which we're not. I'm a tomboy, but we're not. We don't talk to each other like boys. Yeah. We don't react to the same situations as boys. You can't coach a group of female athletes the same way that you can a group of male footballers. And I feel like probably it was polar opposite, and not in a good way. Obviously it's been, that was back in 2015, 2016, so I'd imagine it's come on a long way, but it's almost like if the two sports could meet in the middle somewhere, where if you want to be more feminine at times, which means probably Jo will be able to speak a little bit more. We are a little bit more emotional and a little bit more sensitive, and we do like talking through things a little bit more than boys can just
brush it off.
have a scrap and then be fine with each other the next day. I don't know. Then we'd probably be better as female sports people overall.